This week, we're going to be learning more about the dictionary data type, how to enter input at the keyboard, and how to use different functions to convert that input into different data types. We will also be learning how to loop through our dictionaries and lists and other things, in addition to creating our own functions. So we will be going through 3 different chapters, beginning with the dictionary chapter. So you want to read through chapter 6, and then you're going to go through the lecture demo. And so the lecture demo, you will see there is a video up here that you can watch that kind of goes through this. And if you want to follow along with the exercises that are in the book, there is a zip file that contains all of those exercises. And this chapter is all about dictionaries. So you are going to learn how to create a dictionary, okay, the different ways that you can create them and set them up, how to access data that is in a dictionary, how to add data to a dictionary, how to modify values, how to remove values, and then you'll learn some of the different methods that you can use with the dictionaries. There are hands-on exercises that are embedded right in the lecture demo that you need to complete, and those hands-on exercises are your assignment. And you'll notice that there are separate videos for those. In this chapter, the video at the top goes through all of the content, and then each hands-on has its own separate video. Okay, so once you are done watching the video for the content, then you can come through and complete each hands-on with its own video that shows you how to do the hands-on. So I think this is pretty straightforward as far as dictionaries go. The most difficult thing would be the nesting element, because you can put an entire dictionary inside a list. You can put a dictionary inside a dictionary. The language is super flexible. So just be aware that you can nest these different elements. And I have lots and lots of examples showing you what this looks like. Okay, and then you will have a hands-on that lets you practice. And at the very bottom are the directions for uploading all of this to GitHub. So that's chapter 6. Chapter 7 was user input and while loops. So again, all of the lecture material is explained in this very first video. There is a chapter 7 zip file you can download that have the exercises from that chapter. And then we go through and kind of explain everything, followed by the different hands-on. With user input, when you pull the data in, it's going to be text. And if you wanted to use a number, then you have to convert it. And so we've got an int function and a float function. These are built-in functions, part of the Python language. And what you simply have to do is take that variable that you are storing data in and run it through the proper function, and it will convert it into a number. So the hands-on is going to give you some practice with entering data, and then we get into looping, and specifically a while loop. And we talk about the different ways you can set up the while loop, give you some examples, talk about break and continue, which are basically 2 different ways of getting out of a loop, although there's a huge difference between them, because break takes you to the command below, whereas continue skips over commands and brings you back to the top of the loop. So they both will omit statements, but they do it in a very different way, because continue technically keeps you in the loop. So hands-on 2 gives you some practice working with loops. And then we use looping with lists and dictionaries. Got a couple of examples of how that is used, along with a hands-on. And then finally, uploading to GitHub. You will notice that I did also include Python built-in functions over here because we are using int and float, but there are quite a few built-in functions. A lot of them deal with math. Some of them deal with converting data from one type to another. Some deal with sorting. But here is a list of the built-in functions, and you can just click on the one you're interested in, and it will take you to a description of what it does. That brings me to chapter 8, which is creating your own functions. So how do you create your own functions in Python? We go through the syntax. We have examples. Okay, and it's very similar to other languages because we have arguments that are passed. The difference in Python is that Python has positional arguments, and they also have something called keyword arguments, where it doesn't matter what position they're in because you have a keyword that you have set equal to the argument. So that's a little different, okay, the keyword arguments. So pay close attention to that because that's different than other languages. You can set default values just like you can in other languages. And so I did kind of summarize everything that you need to remember. And then we have some practice. And then there's a section on how to handle dictionaries and lists in your functions and in the calls to the function, okay, with lots of examples. And then, of course, after all the examples, you get a hands-on. Python also does allow for an arbitrary number of arguments in a function. So perhaps you don't know how many arguments there are going to be. You know, how do you handle that? There is a way to do that in Python as well. Okay, and then we get into where the functions are actually stored. And if you have a function that's in a separate file, how do you pull that into your program? Okay, so make sure you read through this, do all the hands-on. And when you're done, the lab assignment Dropbox summarizes all of the exercises you should have completed. And each of those chapters should be up on GitHub. And so if you submit a link to your GitHub repository, I should be able to find everything and get it corrected. If you run into problems this week or if you have questions, please let me know. I am here to help you and have an awesome week.